I'm Martine Durand, the chief statistician of the OECD, which is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development in Paris. And we've done work to try to understand what has been the impact of the crisis on income distribution, the distribution of income, whether the households and people have been affected by the crisis and in which countries, and whether the poor people have been more affected than the rich people. And what we see is that indeed there's been a big impact of the crisis. Of course, GDP has gone down a lot, but the income of household has gone down also in most countries, although it has gone down in some countries more than in others. And what is interesting is that in about 3/4 of OECD countries, we've seen an increase in income disparities, meaning that the richer have become richer and the poorer have become poorer. And that, interestingly, that has affected also countries which in the past were very egalitarian, such as Sweden or Norway or Finland. So you would not have expected that those countries would also see a big increase in income distribution. It's more common for the US or the UK. But no, in fact, those countries, of course, the US and the UK have also registered a high increase in income inequality, but also other countries which in the past were not so much affected. And what we do see as well is that indeed, at least at the beginning of the crisis, the governments have put in place policies that maintain to some extent the level of income of households, because they increased the unemployment benefits, they gave subsidies to some poor households and families. But after a while, after a couple of years, what happened is that they decided to stop with the fiscal expansion and retract with going for fiscal austerity. And now what we're seeing is that indeed the income of households, which was maintained at the beginning of the crisis, is now dropping quite dramatically in a number of countries, affecting most the households that are actually the poorest. Because families are getting the transfers from the government are being cut, health expenditure are being cut, education expenditure is being cut, and that is somehow worrisome is that in some countries those cuts will not only affect what's happening today, but also in the future, because if people don't have the means to actually go and get treated for health problems, well, that will have perhaps implications on life expectancy later on. Or if countries are cutting on education expenditure, that will also have implications on the human capital of the population in the future, and hence on the growth prospects for the future. So it is very important in this phase of austerity that the governments do not cut across the board, but are careful in the way they are actually achieving their budget cuts, and reconsider in some instances the sort of fiscal policies that they want to put in place.